How's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. This is episode 200. I'm very excited. It's a milestone episode. And I was racking my brain on something special to do for this show. And as luck would have it, my friend JD Souther was performing in Santa Barbara. So I got in the car with my friend Mark Islam, and he brought his friend Rosemary Butler, who is, talk about some stories. She's going to be on the Hey Human in an upcoming episode, because that woman look her up, Rosemary Butler, incredible life she has had. So we got up to Santa Barbara, saw JD perform, and he was very kind, because I'm sure he was exhausted after a very excellent and long show, to sit down with me in his hotel and let me ask him some questions. And this is that. JD Souther, of course, hit songwriter, legendary songwriter. He's written hits for the Eagles, Don Henley, in his own right, Linda Ronstadt, Roy Orbison, Stevie Nicks, James Taylor. Did I say James Taylor already? I may have said it twice, but you know what? It's James Taylor. He can be said twice. Just an example, You're Only Lonely, that JD wrote. Man, that thing has been covered, cut by artists several dozen times. There's so many different versions of that. Of course, made most famous by Linda Ronstadt and Roy Orbison. And JD Souther wrote that song by himself, which is also very cool. And of course, JD has put out a ton of his own records as well. Who we talked about his songwriting, obviously, but also about his childhood, his influences. He talked about the time he got shot at, just all sorts of things. It was such a fun conversation. In other news, of course, social media, Hey Human Podcast is on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me personally on social media under Susan Ruthism, under Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Susan at heyhumanpodcast.com if you'd like to email me. Rate and review Hey Human on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast. SusanRuth.com if you want to keep up with me in other realms of my endeavors, art and music, that kind of performances, that kind of thing. And there's a donation button. If you want to donate to Hey Human, please do so. It's right there on the front of the heyhumanpodcast.com website. Also on that heyhumanpodcast.com website is a links page. JD's episode has tons of links for all sorts of things that we talk about. Every episode that I put out has a links page section there on the website that is full up of information, books, movies, conversations, articles, all that stuff. So stay safe out there. Thanks for listening, everybody. Here we go. JD Souther, welcome to Hey Human.
Howdy.
Howdy. That smoky voice that doesn't smoke.
I'm doing smoky voice tonight.
I should make sure. You're actually kind of quiet. I am going to move this up a little. I'm booming. I have a booming voice.
No, you have a sweet voice. I'm taking it easy on mine.
Yeah.
Because I've just sung for 2.5 hours.
I know, and you did an excellent job.
Thank you.
We're in Santa Barbara.
The beautiful Santa Barbara. We were at the Lobero Theater, and now we're at the beautiful
Clifton Hotel.
Yes.
Yes, and the Lobero Theater, and you've played there before.
Yes, I have.
Several times.
Beautiful. It's old. It was an opera house, you know.
Yeah, I loved all the pictures in the green room.
Yeah.
That was cool.
I know. So, Segovia played there. Isaac Stern played there. Plus all those great actors, Henry Ford and James Stewart and
there you go.
And Mitchum. The Moose was there. Yeah, it's a legendary place, and it's beautifully restored, and I love playing those old opera houses and vaudeville houses.
There's an intimacy to it, I think.
Yeah, well, it's little. It's 500 people or something. But yeah. It's great, yeah.
It's good. All right, let's start at the beginning. You're a Texan.
No.
You're not? Weren't you born in Texas?
No, I was born in Detroit.
Oh, you were born in Detroit, actually.
Downtown Detroit, Harper Hospital, right downtown. You grew up in
Texas.
Well, we lived in Detroit until I was 3, and then we moved to Cleveland. I lived in Shaker Heights, and then we moved to Dallas when my mother was pregnant with the eldest of my little sisters, and she dominoed there, and then we moved to Amarillo, and I started school. And then, so all my school years were in Amarillo, Texas.
How many siblings?
2. I had another little sister 5 years later. We're all 5 years apart, so it's perfect. We're never in each other's way.
Did you have a bestie within the siblings?
No, because they were the sisters. They were the girls. I was the prince. You know, I was the only child, only grandchild for years. So everything was showered on me until I was nearly 6, and then suddenly we moved to Texas, and my mother and all of her sisters started having kids, and they were all having girls. So they were all busy, and I was free. It was wonderful.
Nobody tried to dress you up and all that?
No. I was like I just took off. We were at the far west end of town in Amarillo, and it was like, the shot of Indiana Jones at the end of the movie where they're riding off into the sunset. There's just a windmill.
Yeah.
That's like almost from out our back window. And that's where Spielberg shot that. So that's where I grew up in Texas Panhandle. So my mother and her sisters all started having girls, and I was free at last.
Did you have a misspent youth?
Oh, I hope so. I'm sure I Did
you get into trouble much?
Misspent is not the same as wasted.
Of course not. Did you get into trouble? I got into lots of trouble.
I did, but I got away with a lot more than I got caught at.
Why do you think that is?
I know that. I don't think it.
No, I mean, why do you think you got away with it?
Because I didn't want to get caught.
Yeah. So you outsmarted the police, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
And my parents in school. I also had a very easy window to sneak out at night.
Oh, that helps. Did you have a family dog that would rat you out?
No, my family were not dog people. I had one dog for about 2 years, and he was poisoned while we were away.
Oh my God.
For the summer. It was horrible, yeah.
Did you ever figure out who did it?
No, I'd have killed him.
Yeah, I imagine.
It was awkward because my mother was not an animal person, and this dog was a big, huge kind of coyote. He looked like a giant coyote. And my little sister was trying to learn to walk, and he just kept bashing into her and knocking her down. And he just loved her. He was just giving her giant puppy love, but it was like 90-pound puppy love, and she was a little toddler. So we went off to my grandmother's for the summer, and he stayed with some friends of ours in a place called Pleasant Valley, and some devil poisoned all the dogs on one block in one night.
Oh my God, that's horrendous.
It is horrendous, yeah.
You're a huge dog rights.
I'm a huge dog.
You're a huge dog, good boy. Sit, Ubu. But that's a big thing for you, is dog activism, is it not?
Yeah, I love them. I love dogs.
Yeah. Do you work with Emmylou?
One of my dogs came from Emmylou's.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Bonaparte's retreat. Yeah.
Yeah.
The little white wolf, Layla. Emmy's the one who named her.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Were you a music kid?
Yes, always. I started playing violin in the 4th grade.
Did you like it, or were you one of those kids like, don't make me practice?
No one ever made me do anything. I had a violin that my grandma, the opera singing grandma, gave me, a handmade violin, but it was made by a guy named Techman in Detroit in the 40s. And but it was a full-size violin, and I was a little kid. I didn't get tall until I was in high school, so I was sawing away on this giant violin, and all these other kids had these 3/4-size violins. Huh. But I played, my first recital, I played a Mozart Gavotte, and I was done with it. I was like, okay, give me something I can play jazz on a little more easily.
I was going to say, because the melodies you sing in your songs, to me, have a lot of jazz.
Yeah, they're more horn-like. Then I wanted to play tenor sax, but it was too big for me. I was a little kid, but I know clarinet and tenor sax are the same fingering, same key, reads the same on the chart. So I played clarinet for a couple, 3 years till I grew into tenor. And I was just starting to get good at tenor sax, and then I discovered drums.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And that's the only instrument I can really play well.
But you play several.
Yeah, most of them, just not that well.
Yeah. Do you still bang around on the
I have 2 sets of drums. I have one always set up in the barn in the studio, yeah.
I'm sure the dogs love that.
These dogs are a little sketchy with drums.
Yeah.
The bully boys were absolutely indifferent. It's funny, drums didn't scare them and thunder terrified them. These guys are the opposite. They can be out in the rain and they don't care.
Yeah.
But drums are a little unsettling for this couple of dogs.
I remember when you first got
Layla, the white one.
Yeah,
I still had a Doc then, the old bully boy.
They were kind of learning how to play with each other.
They were just learning.
Yeah.
It was interesting too because he was 15 and she was 2, but they formed a perfect relationship. Yeah.
You get that a lot in Hollywood.
Yeah, you sure do. I do. Anyway, Doc passed away finally, and then I got Buster, who's somehow has become Bob. I don't know why I started calling him Bob.
That happens.
He reminded me of the way Bob Dylan said his name once. I don't know, Bob. So I started calling him, "Hey, Bob," and he comes. He likes being called Bob. So.
Oh, well, there you go. You can't take a man's name away from him.
Hell no.
Were you a songwriter as a kid? Did you?
No. I never occurred to me.
When did that sickness sink in?
I wasn't. That particular virus attacked me in about 1969 or 70, I think. I just wasn't getting any work in LA as a drummer or a sax player, so I went home to my dad's music store and I said I need a guitar. There's all these people I'm hanging out with, they're playing guitars and pianos and they're writing songs, and I have a motorcycle. It's hard to carry drums around. I'm not getting work anyway. I need a guitar. And my dad said, well, you have a clarinet, 2 saxophones, and 2 sets of drums. What do you possibly need a guitar for? And I said, I want to try writing songs. And my place is too small for a piano, so can I have... My dad had a music store. That's what we did growing up. We had a family music store. So he gave me a Gibson Dove.
That's a nice present.
Well, I think he made me pay him something for it, so just as a way of teaching me something. But.
And you taught yourself then?
Oh yeah, I never had any lessons on that. Should be obvious. You've just seen me play. I've never had any lessons on guitar.
I am hardly anyone to judge someone on guitar playing. I eke by myself, for sure. You and I met, remember, at Union Station. Remember that? We sat next to each other, and I remember my friend Libby and I were sitting next to you and a friend of yours, and we were commenting on each other's snacks and things. I thought, I'm going to leave my Hey Human business card before I leave. And then you called me, and that was one of the nicest compliments I ever got, by the way, when you called. So thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Really,
no, really. Thank you.
I insist, thank you.
So that's pretty cool. Just happenstance. Delightful to know you.
What were we doing at Union Station?
You were with a man. Y'all were just snacking, and my friend Libby and I were snacking, and I think you were talking about something on a news cycle of something on NPR or something, and it was something that you had said that caught my ear. I thought, oh, I bet you that guy would like Hey Human. I could only see the side of your face, and I didn't want to be too intrusive, so I didn't know it was you. And that's like when I got up and set the card down, I said, you gentlemen will have to fight over this card, and that's when we left. And, yeah, and you did your due diligence, so cheers on you.
I did, yes, thank you. You saw the side of my face. Was it the friendly side or the unfriendly side?
There was a mask.
Camera guys used to tell me that. I have one side that looks severe and one that looks friendly.
Oh, interesting. My best friend is Ellen Severe. Maybe you're related somehow.
Is she Ellen Severe of Severe Park?
Yeah.
Is she?
Yeah.
Really, of the Severe family?
Yeah, she's wonderful.
It's one of the great parks in Nashville, Tennessee, for those of you who don't know.
That's right.
It's called Severe Park.
And one of the great families of Tennessee.
You would know.
Yeah, I would. Their family is like my second family. So when I lived in Nashville, they were very kind and still are. We call the Severe House for Wayward Girls.
Aww.
All of Ellen's girlfriends who spend a lot of time. Ellen's mother is an incredible cook. So when we need fattening, we go there and she fattens us up and makes us happy. It's a lovely place.
Do you think she would do that for me?
I do indeed. Oh my gosh, Ellen's dad would be mad.
I'm not interested in Ellen's dad. I'm interested in the girls and being fattened up.
Okay, I can arrange some stuff when you go back to Nashville. They'll be delighted. Okay, so you get a guitar. What's the next step? You get back to California. Who are you running around with at this point?
Well, I had sort of abandoned the guys that I came to California from Texas with. I rode out there with another band because they needed another singer and I needed a ride. And I decided I'd rather sell my car, keep the cash, and ride with them than drive my car. And then they got a record deal, but I didn't like their songs, so I didn't want to be part of the deal. So I was just I just left. I was sort of cast on the sea of uncertainty where I still sail. And then I met some other songwriters. I met Glenn Frey, not through anything musical, but because his girlfriend's sister was my girlfriend. The sisters were in a singing group called Honey Limited. Stupid name, but it was just 4 gorgeous girls. I think somebody gave them the name. I don't know. And there were 2 sisters in the group, and Glenn, they were from Detroit, which is where Glenn is from, Ann Arbor. He came out to visit his girlfriend. I was hanging out with my girlfriend, the sisters, and Glenn and I started hanging around, and Glenn and I were both out of work. We're like, boy, we're trying to write songs. So mostly we just sat around and listened to music and wrote music and played stupid free gigs, and it was great. It was wonderful. It was almost never any more fun than that. Mm-hmm. We had almost no idea what we were doing, but just a glimmer.
It's a funny thing to think about because you obviously are you, and Glenn Frey is obviously Glenn Frey, and legends in songwriting. But at one point, you were just 2 guys sitting in a room.
2 guys sitting in a room, not even in Echo Park. This is before we moved to. We lived at 1020 Laguna, right above Echo Park, in this little rundown, crappy building. Jackson Browne lived downstairs, and Glenn and I lived upstairs. But before that, we lived in the valley in Toluca Lake, in like this dingbat apartment, just because it was easy they didn't require any money down. You just give them a couple $100 and they'd give you a room, and next thing you know, we were there all the time. And the girls had an apartment too. We lived with them for a while because we had no money. So there were 4 girls in the band, 2-bedroom apartment. One of the girls was off with her boyfriend most of the time. So it was 3 girls and Glenn and I in a 2-bedroom apartment, a small 2-bedroom apartment. And that's how we started.
And you 2 started a band together with
we did.
The funniest name to me. Immediately I thought, that's really phallic.
It was, both words, yeah. It was Long Branch Penny Whistle.
Yeah, that can't be lost on them. No,
it wasn't lost on our manager either. Thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. Did you know, I'm sure you've been asked this question a zillion times, but I've never asked you, did you know that the magic that was about to unfold? Could you tell? Because I think now, when you write a great song, you're like, oh, I know that's a great song.
No. I'm not much more sure of it now than I was then, no.
Interesting.
No, it's still always like sort of trying to start a car on ice. Or as William Stafford put it, swimming the Australian crawl. That's what he called writing poetry. It's just work. It's just work, and you're not sure.
Whenever I finish a song, I think, what if this is the last song that ever comes to me? What if the muses tell me to, kiss off?
That's interesting, because I always think, is it actually finished?
So
I never know when it's finished.
Oh, that's fascinating.
If I was a painter, I'd still be like slobbering things all over the first canvas.
I get asked that a lot about painting, and really, it just 1 minute it's not done, and then it's done.
Or is it?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's weird.
Or is it?
It is, because if I try and add something, I'm like, oh, fuck. And then I have to take it away because I've gone too far.
Oils or acrylics?
I don't have the patience really for oil. I've dabbled in it, but mostly acrylic and things like I throw in papers and glass and sand and all sorts of. I like texture. I'm a tactile kid.
You're one of those materials.
I'm a material
artists.
Girl living in a material world.
I see. Now, I can't draw a circle with a protractor. I just have no skills for that. But if I painted, it would be in watercolor. I love what watercolor does.
That's one of the toughest. My brother's excellent at watercolor.
Well, you can't take things back in watercolor. You're sort of committed to the paper or the canvas then.
Yeah, there's a lovely ballet to watercolor.
There is indeed, yeah. Easy to fall.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's sublime. I think it's one of the more sublime of the craft of painting.
It is, indeed. I painted a watercolor sunset. This is such an obvious, stupid, like childish thing to paint, but I painted a watercolor sunset that my mother thought was quite beautiful, so she framed it and she put it on the wall as though it was good art. And we had some good art on the wall. And people would say, "Oh, hi, Lodi, who did this?" And she'd say, well, "Dave did that." And they'd, "Really? How old was he?" And she'd say, 40. It looked like an 8-year-old drawing, It's just the most simplistic thing, but my mother loved it.
I loved that at 40 she hung your art on the wall. And on the fridge and stuff.
Yeah.
The little handprint.
No. It was proper, framed and.
I love that.
Yeah.
Your parents got to see quite a journey for you.
Oh yeah. They were there all the way. I mean, they suffered through, screechy beginning violins, squeaky beginning saxophone and clarinet, and then 10 years of thunder after I discovered drums. Yeah, they were completely patient, totally supportive, and just always there for it. Yeah.
They have earplugs, probably.
No, they just endured. They're good parents. They're proper
who
parents.
Were musical, obviously.
Yeah, well, my dad was super musical, and my mother was just a really good parent who just understood the right way to operate around children, just to give them the amount of room they need.
Well, it certainly helps them flourish, I think.
It does.
You can't try. I mean, you can. I don't have kids, so I'm talking out my ass. But to say, "Oh, I'm going to make a kid be this," is probably the worst thing you could ever do to a child. It's terrible.
Yeah. It's just awful.
Were you scared when you had your child, when you had your daughter?
I don't know. It's kind of all just a wild adventure, And now I look and she's this gorgeous 21-year-old. It seems unlikely. This is a word that comes to mind. I see her sometimes and I think, wow, oh, that's my little girl, little kid, who used to have always a dirty T-shirt with. Her favorite T-shirt said, "A girl can never have enough shoes," but it was all horseshoes. She was obsessed with horses and dogs. And she was always kind of dirty and she's the kind of kid that would she picked up found a snake in our pond once and just brought it over to the house "Hey, look, I found this thing."
In Tennessee?
Yeah.
Hey, that could be dangerous.
No, it didn't have a viper head. It wasn't poisonous. It was just like a gopher snake or something.
Sure.
But she wasn't spooky. She was kind of a tomboy, but then she all of a sudden one day became glamorous. At 16 or 17, she put on her dress and went, "Holy shit, I'm good looking."
Did that freak you out when she started dating? Yes. I mean, knowing that I'm sure you've dated some of the most extraordinary women on the planet. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. And you know how a man's mind works.
Yeah.
So is that when your daughter's "I'm ready to date,
It's
Daddy"?
a little freaky, yeah.
Yeah. Boy.
Plus, my ex and I were divorced by that time, so it felt like it was a bit of a reach just to even have any effect on it, Mm-hmm. It's a great kid and a great traveling companion. We have these we try to take school breaks together, and we always talk about going to really interesting places, and then we end up going to Washington, D.C. and museum crawling because she's a museum addict.
Yeah.
And so am I, so we're fine with just
But you always have something to talk about in a museum. There's so much.
That's true. That's true. So I always find she's a dancer, so I always try to find something going on with the ballet or we found a great Latin dance company one time that was fabulous. And then we just spend the days at the Smithsonian crawling around different museums. And
were you always drawn to the art? I know music, but to the other arts?
All of them, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because some people have to grow into that.
I was there, my first 2 years were in Detroit with my dad on the road most of the time. And the women that were around me were my mother, my grandma, my dad's mother, the opera singer. And sometimes one of my aunts would come up and just to keep my mother company. But there was just nothing but art and opera and music and books. I was reading Lewis Carroll before I started first grade.
Goodness.
That's how they taught me to read.
Sure.
'Twas brillig and the slithy toasted Gyron gambled in the wabe, all mimsy where the poor grows and the mome wraths outgrabe.
Yes. Jabberwock.
The walrus and the carpenter went walking hand in hand.
My mother recites that all the time.
Yeah.
She calls my brother Beamish Boy.
Beamish Boy. Yeah. Ah, my Beamish Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those poems. That's how they taught me to read. It was such great phonetic exercise.
I was going to say, it's so lyrical and also fantastical.
Fantastical,
yeah. If anyone listening, if you haven't read any, get out and read
them. Yeah, get you some Lewis Carroll pretty quick. Really Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah.
Great poems.
Absolutely.
Magical, fantastical poems. Mm-hmm. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the claws that bite, the jaws that snatch, avoid the Jubju bird, and shun the frumious bandersnatch.
I think that even you can find him reading these things. There are recordings. Really? Yeah, I believe so. I feel like I remember.
Must have been like scroll recordings or something. That's a long time ago.
It was. I remember being little at Christmas time and that being played on the record player.
I think it must have been another English actor or something.
Maybe.
He's Victorian era.
I remember. Yeah, but they had ways to record. I thought on the wax
tubes.
Yeah, they recorded
cylinders.
Things.
They were called wax. I'll look into that. I'd love to hear.
I could have sworn it was actually. But you're right. It could have been just an English actor, but I feel like it wasn't. Who knows? The memory is a funny thing, isn't it? Let's go back to the music stuff. You're writing with Glenn Frey. What was the first song that you wrote together where you thought, this is something? What was he your
Well, there were a few moments where we thought they were all great, and then in the clear light of the next day, we'd go, But a lot of them were just sounds. We'd smoke a lot of grass and then just, while the glasses I filled, weird intervals, and then later we'd go, what? And also we had these managers. They were really nice guys, but they're really square. And we'd play them these songs, and they'd go, "What?" and after about a year of that, we finally one day we just wrote them. Like we wrote 2 or 3 songs that were really kind of obvious, really rhythmic. And they went, "Yeah, that's the way to do it. Let's go make a record." And we were like, "Those are idiotic. We just did that so you'd get off our back." But they got us a record deal with Jimmy Bowen's fledgling record company, and they let us make a record. So we picked these great musicians, Ry Cooder and Doug Kershaw and Jim Gordon and James Burton and all these guys, and went in with this it's not very fully realized material, but the players are great. And it was kind of a start. It was a good jump start, and then it didn't do anything. The record didn't do anything. So they said, well, next time you have to cut other people's songs. You have to cut what they call titles, meaning they were probably hits once. And of course we just said, no, that's not what we're doing here. We're songwriters. You take it or leave it. They left it. So we just didn't record for about a year, and then David Geffen met us and they said, why aren't you? Are you signed to anybody? We went, yeah, we're kind of stuck to this label. He went, And he just bought us off it the next morning. And then we were already each better at songwriting by then too, so it was more deserved than it was. I mean, our first label was right to an extent. They just were wrong in the solution. We just needed to write a little bit better songs. We didn't need to record other people's songs. Now I love doing other people's songs, but then we really had something to prove.
As you were getting better, when did all that start to connect with everybody else around? Don Henley, and then Linda Ronstadt, all these people.
I don't really know. I mean, I knew Glenn first, and then we lived in the same building that Jackson lived in, and we hung out a lot, and a lot of other writers were around then. Also Pamela Poland and David Jackson and Zevon a couple of years later, Warren Zevon, and Jackson got the first record deal with David Geffen, and then introduced me to Geffen, and then I got a deal, and then Glenn and Don Henley put Eagles together and got a deal. And I already knew Linda. I just met Linda in the Troubadour one night. I just thought she was the cutest thing I'd ever seen. So I just took her by the hand and sat her down beside me, and I said, I think you should cook me dinner. And she said, okay. I went, wow, okay, great.
Is that easy?
Yeah, and so I went over to her house the next night, or the house that she was staying in with an ex-boyfriend, and she made me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
That'll get you every time.
I took her home and kept her. Yeah. I said, that's it, you're moving your stuff to my house.
Did she learn how to cook more?
She already could cook. It was just, I don't know, she's just messing with me or
I love
something.
it.
No, she actually she was quite a good cook. There she is now. Yeah. She's quite a good cook, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's good at everything. I don't know how. She's
were you madly in love right from the start?
Sort of, yeah. We were sitting at somebody's house one night, this guy named Richard Davis, who used to manage Poco. And we were sitting on the floor. There's a bunch of musicians who were playing songs and stuff.
This is Linda Ronstadt, for anyone that isn't sure who we're talking about.
I don't know if I've ever told this before. But she says that I just wanted to leave, and she said I touched her on the leg and said, let's go. And she said that some electricity went through us. And we both kind of snapped and like, wow, yeah, let's get out of here right now, you know.
She's quoted as saying you were the greatest love of her life. That's big apples. It's
big apples, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw her Saturday night. She came to the show in Berkeley.
Oh, yeah?
Friday night, yeah. Yeah, I still love that woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Great friend, great spirit, and just so smart and so fun to talk. She's read every book ever that was important. One time I called her to ask about a quote from a Turgenev book, and she actually said to me, "Which Turgenev?" I went, "Holy God, Ivan Turgenev, Torrents of Spring. You gave me the book." "Oh, him, yeah." It just rattled off the quote. I didn't know there were 3 Turgenevs.
Oh, nothing better than a smart woman, right? It's a sexy thing.
It's the sexiest.
Yeah. Gotta read those books, kids.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. Well, Jim Harrison, great novelist and poet, always said, if you want to write great, you better read great.
Amen. I tell that to writers and artists all the time that I get.
Same for music. If you listen to crap, you'll write crap. You know.
Yeah, I think that's true. Do you get? Well, it's a tricky question to ask somebody like you, but when you hear a lot of the music today, is it frustrating comparatively to the poetry of? I know every era has its music. I get that.
It does, definitely. It does. Every generation has its music. Probably even less than decades, probably every 5 or 6 years, it changes radically. It doesn't frustrate me. It's not my problem. But I think there's always really good music. It's just not on the radio now because several factors. But first was the Communications Act, which allowed radio stations to become these huge monopolies. So there are 4 or 5 guys writing playlists for the whole country, which is patently insane and violates antitrust laws.
Absolutely.
And then a few years later, along comes the internet, which completely democratizes everything to an extent. But democracy has a high cost, both in society and in art, particularly because the gatekeepers are gone. So is it a good thing or a bad thing that there were no Mo Austins and David Geffens and Clive Davises saying, yeah, I don't know, yes, no, maybe? Because now everybody just sort of hurls things out into the void. If you have Pro Tools or even GarageBand or anything, or just a voice memo in your bedroom, you can make a record on your iPhone, and all it takes is just an odd warp in space for it to become viral, and that might be the next big thing, and then again, it might not. I know of one instance fairly recently, maybe 18 months ago. Someone in management that I know took an artist that had been on, I don't know, I guess YouTube and most other platforms singing lullabies to a baby. Millions of hits, millions of looks and likes and ticks and tacks and all those things and shares and got her a record deal. Nothing. It was just one of those phenomena that had more to do with the article, the implement of that shared the music than the actual music itself. It's because it's accessible, you know. I mean, nothing sounds better than vinyl, but you can't carry 10,000 vinyls around in your pocket. You can carry 10,000 songs around on your iPhone. So, as Linda Ronstadt said to me years ago, forget it, John David, we gave up quality for convenience a long time ago. So I was always trying to cheerlead people back into turntables and good stereos. And
yeah, there's such a experience. That's always the word I come to when I think about, you go to the record store, record store, and you pick out a record, and it's got this beautiful art on the cover that someone was really specific and particular about and really thought about, and then the songs that they selected and the order that they go in and the stories that it all tells, not the singles but the story of the album, the arc of the album. And then to sit on the floor with your headphones or whatever, or in your room, and you have the lyrics and you're reading the lyrics and you're reading who they're thanking, and you're seeing who wrote the songs, and
who played on them,
and who played on them, and who produced and engineered, and all the pieces, all the parts of the puzzle, and you become a part of it too, because as a listener, and it's like this whole big holy moment.
It is a whole, you use the right word, it's an experience. And I think just walking around with earbuds and flitting around between pieces of music, or the worst thing to me possible are those shuffles, where you just put your program on shuffle and it just plays random stuff to you. It just sounds insane to me. It sounds like I'm walking into an intersection with cars going every direction. It makes no sense to me. And I still make albums like they're albums. I still make, like, I think it's a book every time, and I want it to start somewhere, and I want you to take that vinyl home, and I've really thought about what the cover looks like and the art and
the stories, all the stories.
Read along, all the lyrics are in it, and the players, and there's a style to it and a feel to it. Yeah, I think it's coming around again. It's just a small piece of the market, but it's the only, interestingly enough, it's the only, what's the word of section, fragment? It's the only piece of the market that grows every year is vinyl. It's still small. You still have to use the word niche. It's not a big piece, but it's the only piece that gets bigger every year.
Yeah, I love vinyl, and I love going into record stores. It's the same. I love going into bookstores.
Even better. Yeah,
it's great.
And they're disappearing thanks to Bezos and his.
A few are coming back though. A few, Parnassus and Nashville is going very strong.
It's a good store.
Yeah, it really is.
But we lost Bookman and Bookwoman.
I know. That bummed me out because they're rare books. Oh goodness, they had great rare books section.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, for sure. And Powell's, of course, in Oregon. And there's some,
That's the greatest bookstore in America, Powell's. I have to throw down for Powell's in Portland.
Yeah,
if you want to go to a real bookstore, it's like a whole city block or something.
Have you been in the rare books
heaven? Yes, I've been everywhere around, crawled everything around that place.
Yeah.
It's filled with people who love books and love to read and write, and people with dogs and people with great coffee. And they do this other thing with the way they categorize, the way they shelve their books is brilliant. If you go to look for Dalva or Legends of the Fall by Jim Harrison, you find the new hardback, the trade paperback, the used book, and the paperback all in the same section.
Yeah.
They're together. You don't have to go bargain hunting. If you want to get Melville, you go to Melville. It's all in the same spot. It's just brilliant. Yeah. I love Powell's. Yeah. I would live at Powell's.
Yeah, right? I agree with you on that one. And there's never enough time when I'm there, too.
No, I spend 4 or 5 hours there, and I realize I'm starving, and I haven't even covered any distance.
They do have a good coffee shop.
They do have a good coffee shop. That's true.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. All right, now I want to go back again. The Eagles. When the Eagles formed, did you think, when you heard certain bands, did you know immediately, or
I was pretty sure they had something.
Yeah.
Right away.
I mean, that's just magic.
It was just really powerful. I was in the band for a day. Geffen and Roberts, who were our managers then, said, maybe you should be in the band too. If 3 writers good, 4 writers better. So, or 4 writers good. But yeah, there's something going on the street here. That's that's what people are going to do.
Santa Barbara people fight?
You wouldn't think so, would you?
They're like, give me that wine.
Yeah. Thank you. They sounded great, just the first 4 guys, and David Geffen suggested that we rehearse together and then play a set for the managers, for Geffen and Roberts, just to see how it went. And we played a set at the Troubadour in the afternoon while they were closed for David and Elliot and the guys that worked for them, Ron Stone and John Hartman. And I just remember sort of looking down the line and thinking, this is just what the world needs. Another band with 3 acoustic guitar players and 5 harmony singers, And I'm not a very good team player. I'm a rogue. So I just told David, I said, look, I don't know, maybe if you give me a bunch of money or something. But no, seriously, I said, look, we write together anyway. We're going to do that, and it'll be great. We'll make good stuff together. But I think we'd end up hating each other for in a band. And I swear to God, Henley looked so relieved. He and Glenn both just looked like, whew. God, I have to deal with this guy.
You and Don Henley wrote one of my all-time favorite songs.
The Heart of the Matter.
Yeah, it's one of my all-time favorite songs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I have to give most of the credit to Don on that. I never even heard the second verse until he did the vocal.
Mm.
And I think that's just one of the most stunning. I forgot to do it tonight, actually.
I was hoping, but
yeah, I thought it was going a little long, and I left out a couple of things. But I think that whole second verse, these times are so uncertain, there's a yearning undefined, and people filled with rage. Well, they're just wonderful, wonderful lyrics, and I worked on that song a lot, but I did not see that train coming through. He just came up with that, and it was absolutely stunning.
It's a stunning song.
Some of the best lyrics, yeah.
Are there songs after all these years when I perform, for example, there's a song or two that I've written, I think, I'm always going to be madly in love with this song. Is there a particular one or two that just, it'll never be shaken from you?
Well, I guess. I don't know. I know so many songs.
Yeah. You've written so many.
Well, I also know so many. I mean, after I did the Duke Ellington song tonight, I was thinking, I did a Harold Arlen song, and I did a Hank Williams song.
That Hank Williams, that was fantastic. Eerie? Oh, I loved that.
Thank you. I had never played it in that key
Rambling
before.
Man, is that what
Rambling
it's called?
Man,
yeah. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it is very operatic, isn't it? It's really huge and dramatic.
Dirge,
It is, yeah. And so I just sort of took it to the piano and shaped all this sort of orchestral stuff around it, and it was moving. That was the most fun I had tonight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's good that you still have fun after all these years. And I asked you at dinner, do you still get nervous? And you said,
oh yeah, every night, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's worse if I pretend I'm not.
Yeah.
So sometimes I just jump up and down right before I go on, woo woo, just bounce up and down on my feet like pogo.
As the Eagles album started selling like it did, how, as a songwriter and just to be a part of something like that, was your hair just blowing back constantly, or did it even make sense?
No, I don't think I really made sense of it. I mean, the one part of it was obvious. This money, 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 money. It was nice to have money just coming to a business manager. I'd never had a business manager before. Check in and look in on it, and there'd be thousands of dollars there. And I go, it's amazing. I was just a jobbing musician before. I played dates, and then maybe I got $50, and maybe I got $100, and so to suddenly be getting checks for thousands of dollars was enlightening. The whole fame thing was disappointing to me. The only time I was really famous for a while was when You're Only Lonely was a big hit, and I found it more disturbing than pleasant.
It doesn't seem to suit your personality.
No.
Having known you for a couple of years now, I mean, you just didn't
I'm too cranky for that.
You're kind of cranky. But it's endearing.
That's nice to hear, thanks. It's pretty harmless. I don't mean ill to anybody. I'm lost in my own world sometimes.
Sure.
If someone comes up and goes, oh, hey, and that bubble kind of, they have a bubble that they think they're piercing, but it's not exactly the same bubble. I'm just in the grocery store trying to get the right size batteries for something, and so to see someone sort of, telling me how wonderful something is, or being like one of those people, and then the line tonight was almost tearful, and I'm appreciative and grateful, and I would not be living the life I live without that, but
Well,
it feels a little strange to me.
Yeah, the gift of the songwriter, you're helping people say the things they don't know how to say, and to feel that you're unlocking parts of themselves perhaps that they've locked away.
Do you think?
I do. I really do. I think that when you hear a song, if you hear a happy song or your working out song or your deep cry you play 1,000 times in a row, just broke up with someone's song.
Those are the only kind I write. What are happy songs and working out songs? I don't have any of those.
I'm talking in the royal sense.
Oh.
Yeah. I think when people hear songs that connect to them and allow them to think and feel and be a part of themselves that they don't know how to touch without it, you become that touchstone, right? You become a part of them. J.D. Souther wrote this song, and every word is something that I felt and thought, and it's become a part of my bloodstream. And when I meet you, then suddenly it's like a thank you for helping me release this demon of whatever it is inside of me. And I think that's what happens. That's a transference. It's a communion between listener and writer. I'd like to think that's what it is.
I'm going to listen to this podcast just to hear you say that again. That was so smart. I think probably so. I feel like that with other people's songs, so I'm glad people feel that way about mine sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But my introduction to music was so strange. I didn't hear. The first thing I heard wasn't, people sitting around with a banjo or music on the radio or something. It was my grandma taking me to hear, Nelson Dorma, to hear, Puccini. So, and she said to me once, she said, "Now that's a song." And I went, "Yes, it is. That's absolutely a song."
Think of how that's shaped your writing, though. All that
tremendously, I'm sure.
Absolutely. To be raised up as a classical musician, I mean, you can hear it. You can hear it in your melodies and in the cadence. The words, poetry has a musicality to itself, right? Words, when we speak, there's a musicality to how we say what we're feeling and such. So it all makes sense to me that I can hear your upbringing, your musical upbringing in what you do.
We should be doing this for camera.
So I'm gesticulating wildly.
I'm loving it.
I'm conducting as I
You are conducting. You have a conductor in your soul there. Right.
Yeah.
It's sort of a conductor paintbrush combo.
There you go. I listen to music a lot when I paint.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how the music shapes the painting, obviously, because whatever I'm listening to, that story is weaving itself through me, and the colors I choose and the textures and all that. Yeah, it's fascinating. I think about that when I go to museums and I look up at the artwork or the sculptures or whatever.
But they didn't have recorded music.
No, they didn't. But I think about what were they thinking?
What were they thinking? What were they hearing?
Was the window open and there were birds? Was there somebody arguing outside?
Like just now, yeah.
Yeah.
What was playing in their heads?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
It's pretty wild. Or did they just come from
What was
a
Rembrandt
concert?
thinking when he got that light just right and figured out a way to use this sort of refracted light in a way no one had used before? That gave skin a kind of a glow and a sort of a natural but mystical thing. What was he thinking? What was he hearing?
It's a touch from the gods.
Yeah, I think
it really
so.
is. It's whatever it is that the creators are doing, whether it's Steve Jobs or you or whatever. The creators, they're taking from the universal flow.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's all just sort of swirling around, but I'm not. I don't have the Deepak Chopra thing. I don't think this consciousness is non-local kind of bullshit really holds any water. But I think within each brain is the ability to apprehend a lot more territory than we're introduced to when we're children. Because as small children, your senses are almost unbounded. Your fences as well are almost unbounded. You can go anywhere in your head, and society and your parents and schools and everything begin to shape you and cramp you and crimp you into these smaller sized things. And it's probably necessary to some degree just to keep an orderly society, but the trade-off is that some kids who have probably almost unlimited possibilities get squashed in it, because I think within almost every brain, I think everybody's an artist to some extent. It just, some of us get it beaten out of us, and some are fortunate enough not to have it beaten out of us, to have it nourished and watered and have parents that are thrilled by it instead of parents that are threatened by it.
Mm-hmm. I think about, the stories of the kids that sneak out to go to the concerts, things, so that they can get their taste of what isn't maybe allowed at home. I love that act of rebellion.
Yeah, I do too, and I guess I participated in it to some degree, but I don't know why, because it was all okay with, I heard music first with my mom and with my dad and my grandma, and with every adult that I knew after that. And I heard it all my life. And when I started sneaking out and going to see, we went to a club that was in the black part of town called Carter's Tavern, Percy Carter. All the black acts that came through Amarillo, Texas, the big acts, James Brown, Jackie Wilson, the guys played at the fairgrounds. But all the blues guys, Albert King, B.B. King, Freddie King, the King family, all the blues guys, Bobby Blue Bland, all the great blues guys played at the club at Carter's Tavern. And me and, two guys that were in the band one of the bands I was in high school that were much older than me, they were in college and I was in high school. We were the only white people ever in this place. And this guy, Percy, after a while just it was cool to see. He'd be glad to see us coming. I was too young to even be in there. But we'd go in and just see this amazing music, and I was not sneaking out. I would talk to my dad about it, Man, you hear this horn chart on, Yeah, it was pretty great, People could play Dad, Midnight Hour. Isn't that cool, The great horn chart. Yeah, this is great what the bass player's doing, too.
How lucky are you? Isn't it
extremely
extraordinary?
Lucky?
Holy
extremely
cow.
Lucky, yeah.
Just it's amazing. Do you recall the first time you heard Linda Ronstadt sing?
No, actually I don't.
Really?
No, I remember seeing her first and just thinking she was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Mm. I'm sure I heard what was the Stone Ponies record? Different drum.
Oh.
The first hit when she was in the Stone Ponies. I'm sure I heard it on the radio. I was in college in Texas. In Texas, still in college, and I'm sure I heard "Long, Long Time" on the radio, probably. But it didn't. It must not have registered any more than "Wow, what a fabulous singer," And then I don't know. I just saw her and I went, "Man, that's for me."
If living or dead musician, who would you like to? Let's just go with somebody that's passed away, because you could probably talk to any musician as it is, but someone who's passed away from any century. Who would you want to sit down and have a chatter with?
Bach.
Yeah?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to hear him play the Goldberg Variations. I'll settle for Glenn Gould playing it, which is about as good as music gets, the first version in the 50s. But I would love to watch Johann Sebastian Bach at work.
Speaking of touching God.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd sure like to hang out with Miles, too, although I know he would have been creepy and rude to me, but I still would have dug it.
Yeah.
I saw him, when I first moved to Hollywood, I went to see him in a little jazz club, and he fired somebody on stage, and I thought, this is the weirdest. this guy, he just cut this guy loose, man, during a set,
Yeah.
You're out of here.
So when we had dinner, you said something about being shot at?
Yeah, I got shot at a couple times, but once somebody tried to break into my car when I was living in Beechwood Canyon, second house I had in Beechwood Canyon. After Linda and I broke up the second time, I think, although she was at that house too a few times. Somebody was trying to break into one of my cars, and my neighbor across the street, Russ Jaguar, who was in the group called The Association, who had the first hit song about marijuana called Along Came Mary. anyway, he was my neighbor across the street, and he saw this guy trying to jimmy his way into my car, and he came over and grabbed the guy in a headlock and bashed him against my car, and the guy ran off down the street, and Russ came in. I heard this ruckus, and Bill Martin was there, the comedy writer that I mentioned tonight. They came in the house and said, "What was that all about?" And he said, "No, this guy was trying to break into your car." I grabbed him, and the guy took off down the street. We were all in laughing about it and drinking, and all of a sudden shots started coming through the window, right over my head, like literally right by my head. I hear this sound that bullets make. They're coming through the glass windows, a big Spanish house, the glass window, and this sort of carpet we'd hung as a curtain, I guess. It was pretty thick. So it was going through those things and then hitting the plaster wall in the Spanish house right above my head, literally like 2-3 inches beside my temple. And I just said, everybody should get down. I remember saying that. I don't know why I was so calm, but I said, get down, everybody. And I went and grabbed my rifle, but the guy had already peeled off down the street, and I wasn't going to start shooting into Hollywood from up in the hills, but it was pretty exciting.
Wow. That makes my heart race.
It was, it was a rush, for sure.
Thank God for those curtains, probably.
I don't know. I think he was just shooting from such a low angle. It's Hollywood Hills. Every house is above the street. So he's shooting from probably 30 yards away and 20 feet below us. So they're all going over my head, but just.
Jesus, that's so crazy.
And I know he could see our silhouettes because we were inside the house and it was lit up.
Sure. He's aiming for the shadows, thank God.
He's starting to shoot. Yeah, he was hitting the shadows.
Aim for the shadows.
Yeah.
What about Cuba? What made you go to Cuba? For the thing with you named it.
I've been to Cuba a couple times. I really like Cuba.
On stage tonight, you talked about a songwriting event.
Yeah, I went with a bunch of songwriters. It was a thing that this guy, Roy Allen Scott, put together called Music Bridges. And he did it with several countries, but the first one that he put together was this trip of songwriters to go to Cuba. And this is back when you had to have a government permit. So we had to get an official invitation from the Ministry of Education, because the premise was, from their end, that they were educating us about socialism.
It'll catch on.
Yeah, right. So thus did all of these American songwriters, and a few Brits too, but mostly all American songwriters, ended up 20 of us on a charter plane to Havana to write with Cuban artists. And we stayed in the old Nacional Hotel on the Maricon Road, and it was fabulous.
And Woody Harrelson was
Woody Harrelson was the star of the whole trip, despite all these incredible luminaries: Burt Bacharach, Bonnie Raitt, Indigo Girls, Lisa Loeb. I can't remember all the people. Michelle Ndignicello, who saved my life one night. I was trying to cut something in the studio, and I was just doing terrible at it. I was late. The deal was we were supposed to write in the daytime and then record it at night. It was like a songwriter clinic. I don't know. It was a thing. You were supposed to be on some kind of schedule. And I just was so far behind, and she just stepped into the studio behind me, and she just put her, and I had shaved my beard and shaved my head. And I don't know why I thought it would be cool, because I just looked like a plucked chicken to me. And I was sitting there just feeling self-conscious and weird, and like the song wasn't good enough and it wasn't done, and I needed a bass player really bad. And
she's a badass.
This gorgeous black woman comes in, puts her hand on the back of my little bald head and goes, "What's so sad about this handsome boy? What you so sad about?" And I said, "Oh my God." I said, "Would you play bass with me?" And she goes, "Of course." And she grabbed a bass and we cut this whole thing.
She's a badass.
She is bad, yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't know Woody Harrelson was a songwriter.
Woody, here's the way we wrote the songs. Every morning we would eat a late breakfast down in this big plaza. It was a restaurant, sort of, there's probably a better word for that, but it was like a plaza to me. And there was a big fish bowl, glass bowl with all of our names on pieces of paper, and we would draw to see who we were going to go write with that day. So the first morning, it was supposed to be 2 Americans and 2 Cubans. So the first morning I draw, and the American I drew was Peter Buck from R.E.M. And the Cubans were a kid named Raul. I can't think of this kid's last name now. It's been driving me crazy for about 2 weeks. And this beautiful woman, named Yadara. began with a Y, Yidara. And she was so beautiful you could hardly look at her. She was just, I mean, I would see people looking at her and they would just stop in mid-sentence. And she just looked like a painting. She was fabulous looking. So the four of us became a team for the week. And after the second day, and I had a Russian translator who was very beautiful too, who translated into Spanish. And so the four of us, after a couple of days, and this kid Raul had a job. He was there late. He didn't get there every morning. So these two beautiful women and Peter Buck and I would just go adventuring around Cuba. And at the second day, we just went, why draw any more names? We're happy the way things are. But I got to know Woody Harrelson a little bit, and the first group that he was in was a really odd. There were too many people for every group to work out as two Americans and two Cubans. So one of the songwriting groups on the first day was Bonnie Raitt, Burt Bacharach, Woody Harrelson, and it's two Cubans. And we had lunch together after we'd write for a while, and then we'd have another meal. And I sat down with Bonnie. I said, "How's your group going?" She goes, because I knew Woody Harrelson was in her group, and she said, "Well, we sat down as soon as we had picked up any guitars. Woody had the first two lines of the song, and they were, 'We got blue skies, just like you guys.'" And she said, "You see what I'm up against?" And I went, "I think you're in heaven." I think that's the coolest thing we could be doing down here, is to not take it real, not get all serious and heavy, just have fun with these people. This is supposed to be a party. So we all write for the rest of the week, and it was really good. And of course she realized that it was a cool thing to do. And there were all these different groups and all these different songs, and we all played a concert Saturday night at the Karl Marx Memorial Theater.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on.
And it was like everything else the Russians did in the 70s. It was ugly and concrete, and it wasn't Russia, it was Soviet Union. It's just a big square box of an auditorium that didn't sound good, and the plumbing didn't work, and the sound system was just crap, and it was just horrible. But on the Wednesday night, in the middle of the week, we saw the Buena Vista Social Club.
Oh, man.
Because they were there, their movie was debuting that week, with the director, Ry Cooder was down there, and Barry Levinson was down. It was fantastic. It was the best concert I've ever seen in my life. It was before any of the Social Club people started dying off. That album had just hit, and the Cubans were so grateful to see all these people back together again, that the audience was everything from literally toddlers clowning around down in the front rows to people with walkers in their 80s and 90s who remembered those guys playing in the 50s. It was just this fabulous evening of music. So anyway, that's great. We go back to our writing jobs and our adventures, which for a couple of days of the week involved us hiking over to this one place and feeding this horse that we thought looked emaciated, stealing hay from one place wheat from another place, and taking it to this horse. It wasn't exactly a writing session, but anyway, Saturday night, so the big night for the show comes. And Joan Osborne was part of this group too, and she killed it. She sang so well and wrote this thing, and she's a great singer, and she just came out, and she was sick that day. We went to a baseball game, she and Lisa Loeb and I, to see the Cuban Nationals play the Baltimore Orioles. A pretty fabulous thing. Sat right behind Fidel and Woody Harrelson, who struck up an immediate palship with Fidel.
Of course he did, because he's Woody Harrelson.
He's Woody Harrelson.
Freaking love
He's
him.
the coolest guy in the entire world, So we're doing the concert, and some songs are more serious than others, but what do you think was the song that was the killer song of the whole night?
Woody's probably.
Woody's song, which ended up being called Cuba's Way Too Cool. And it started with, "We got blue skies, just like you guys." And then the end of the chorus was, "Cuba's way too cool." And he wasn't playing an instrument. He had these big kind of cargo pants on. He was doing this sort of dance back and forth across the stage, and it was the biggest hit of the entire week.
Man, I love it. That's wonderful.
Yeah. It was great. He told the best story I've ever heard too about getting high. We were eating lunch with Barry Levinson and his son because he was down there. I think he was filming the baseball game, and it was Woody and Barry and his son and I, and we were talking about smoking pot, and one of us asked Barry if he'd ever smoked pot, and he went, "Well, yeah, I did once in Aspen, Colorado, years ago," and he said, I was standing in the bathroom with a towel around me and a joint in my hand, and I couldn't remember whether I was about to take a shower or whether I'd just taken a shower. And Woody, without blinking an eye, Woody just said, "Welcome to my world."
Perfect.
And I thought, I like this guy.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, I want to end on the newest record that you made.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome. I own it on vinyl.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have to get you to sign it one of these years. I have to schlep it back to Nashville, get you to sign it.
How about if I schlep out to L.A.?
I mean, I would love that. Yeah,
I'll
for
be
sure.
there on Sunday.
Oh, you will? Mm-hmm. So will I.
Are you serious?
What are the chances? You had written it as a movie. It's funny.
Well, I wanted it. I was sort of told, yes.
When you sang the song tonight, I thought, man,
you can see that scene.
Well, I thought, why doesn't he write it as a musical? I could see that album being a Broadway play.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, all right.
Let me be your agent.
Okay.
Sign right here.
You got a deal. Let's put on a play. I know. We'll rent a barn. Wait, I have a barn.
You have a barn. I think you could probably get a few steps up from a barn. So, but
maybe.
Talk about the record.
Oh, I don't know what to say about it. It's not. It's called Tenderness.
Go check it out. Tenderness. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Tenderness. It's on Sony Music Masterworks, and I think it's.
And it's lovely.
It is. Thank you.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's lovely too. It's produced by Larry Klein, brilliant friend of mine and brother. We address each other as mon frère. And he did a magnificent job producing it. And these beautiful string charts are by Billy Childs, brilliant jazz musician and arranger and piano player. And it's really orchestral and beautiful and yet very intimate. And I don't know what I'll do next time, but that was my orchestra album for a while.
It's lovely. It really is.
Thank you.
For people listening, what is the best way to find you? Is it on social media? Is it to go and...
I've just started doing that. I sent out a couple of Instagrams the last few days, and I'm amazed I'm getting all these. I've never done it before. I'm getting all
What's
these.
Your Insta handle? Do you know?
My name.
It's just your name?
Uh-huh.
I'm shocked.
Well, are you supposed to have a code or something?
Well, it's at, and then, sometimes it's your name, sometimes it's your name plus music, because people will take famous people's names and make it their own. So
I'm not that famous.
You're pretty famous. Yeah. In my world, for certain.
Well, I think when I first heard about Instagram, I just picked it. I got it right away because I missed getting my .com. With my name, and then some asshole tried to sell it to me for thousands of dollars. And I went, "Don't be ridiculous."
Somebody bought my name, believe it or not. Yeah.
Yeah, they do it. They just scrounge them up like scavengers. They're. So I just used .net, but it's
JDSouther.net.
Yeah.
Well, and
but I'm on Facebook, and it's just JD Souther on Instagram.
Yeah. I like every episode I put everything on the links page on podcast.com, so people just go there and find everything.
Good. Yeah. Good. And here's another thing. I just met someone. I'm going to start doing some art, some really limited run T-shirts. I met some girls, a band called the Rainbow Girls. Do you know those girls, Rainbow Girls? Mm-hmm. Fabulous band from, I think they got together here. They live in Oakland now, but I think they're Santa Barbara girls. And their manager is a friend of mine and stepped into the breach when my tour manager got hurt in D.C. a few weeks ago, and she just took over for a few days and did a great job. And then I met them, saw them play. They're fantastic. And they do this thing with she said, why don't you do T-shirts? And I went, I'm not a T-shirt act. No one's going to buy my T-shirts. And I said, it's because if you just put tour dates on them, nobody cares about that anymore. Get someone to do something that's artistic, do a small run, just order 100 of them or something, or we order them 25 at a time. I said, wow, really can do that? And she goes, yeah, the girls do it themselves. I went, really? Will they do one of mine? Draw something? Sure, it's that simple. So maybe I'll try a few things like that.
I love it. Perfect.
Yeah.
JD
I mean, and now I'm on the Instagram. Anything can happen.
I know, right?
I used to think it was the devil. It turns out it's where I can see all these cute dog, videos.
How many dog Instagrams do you follow?
Oh, God.
A lot.
Sick. A lot.
Yeah, a lot. They're the best, though. God, it's such a respite from the world.
It is.
Big dog's face, smiley face. Dogs have the best smiles.
They're the best.
Yeah, they really are. And cats, too. I like cats, too.
Yeah, they don't
And
so much
horses,
smile as kind of like...
Yeah, they have to be...
I mean, it is the evolutionary difference between pack hunters and solo hunters.
Right.
Dogs need. Cats...
Yeah, it's interesting because you're more of the solo than the pack. And
I am, I love dogs. I love to be
dogs.
worshipped by my dogs. Because I sort of worship them too. I would squeeze them so hard they'd pop if they'd let me.
Yeah, no, they're the best.
I just love them, yeah. Well, I watched the two dogs before this, the Bully Boys, who we affectionately called the Bruise Brothers because they were such...
They were pit bulls?
Yeah. Or some blend of,
sure.
Tennessee Brown Hounds.
Yeah.
And they were so wonderful with Anya, with my kid. They were just fabulous. These little girls would ride them, put shoes on them, hats, sunglasses, all this. Put a dog, their lead, and then treat it like a harness and run around the yard behind them. It wasn't all really great for the dogs, but dogs have this sense about the innocence of children, and they absolutely adored her and she them, and it just even further cemented my love for dogs, which I have deep anyway in me. I can't stand to be without dogs. It's the worst thing about being on the road is waking up in a hotel room and there's no dogs in bed.
Yeah.
I just scared away every potential girlfriend.
Nah, I think you'll be fine.
But they're sort of allowed everything in my house. Dogs are not forbidden anything.
Yeah.
Although
you've got a good house for it, though.
I do have a good house for it, don't I?
You've got a good dog's house.
Yeah. And I also have that big field with a dog door, so
I think they're in heaven.
It's pretty fat city for dogs. Yeah.
JD, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate this. It's a long time coming, and
I know.
You're very gracious to do this after a show when you probably just want to go sleep. So thank you. I appreciate it. Bye, everybody.
Bye. You're one of my favorite humans.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, mine too. Thank you. It means a lot to me. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Rate and review Hey Human on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you.